Since the Super Bowl is in a Lincoln Stadium and it's up north where it's a little colder, are the coaches and trainers, do you think taking a different, or do you think that they'll do different warm-ups or take other precautions to prevent injury if it's more likely in colder weather?
I think honestly, injury is inevitable, so it's gonna happen regardless of the climate or where you are. It just depends on the person and how well they're trained, but I do believe that the coaches and athletic trainers and the sports staff take appropriate measures to prepare for certain places. But you got to think about it. Broncos play in a high altitude area in Denver where it's cold. Seattle plays where it's cold and rainy, and the weather is pretty much the same. So I feel like they're already somewhat adapted, but they do practice in those conditions like prior to the game, so they are somewhat used to it. So I honestly don't think injury really will change, because people are going to get injured regardless of the climate, the conditions, like whether it's snowy or rainy. I mean, I guess if it snows, then they have the potential of injuring themselves just because it could be slick. They might slip on something, their cleats might not catch, or something of that nature. But they're always really good about getting ready for the games or preparing. So.
What are some of the things that are important in getting ready for any game?
I mean, practices are key. If you're not going to have a good practice, then you have a good chance of not having a good game. If you're not mentally and physically prepared, then you also have a chance of not performing at your best.
What are some of the things to warm up before a game that are necessary? Or does it depend on the player?
I would say more so it depends on the player as it depends on the coach, but you gotta think this is a professional sport, so people are competing at the highest level, for football especially, but they have, the quality of staff that they have is tremendous. They have at least 5 or more certified athletic trainers on staff. They have their own strength and conditioning coaches. They have numerous other coaches. I'm sure they have nutritionists. They have their own physicians. They have their own everything. So, in saying that, I feel like we're just doing an interview. It's gonna take like 10 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. It's okay. No, it's fine. But normal preparing for the game, you do a dynamic warm-up. So that's like high knees, getting your blood flowing, pumping, and then you got position coaches that may do something different for you. It just depends on the position you are, what your job is on the field, and that sort of thing. If you're offense or defense, you're gonna have different warm-ups. But they usually have I would say they usually have one team warm-up where they do the same exercises. But as far as drills and everything goes, it varies from position to player.
Do you think that all the nutrition and all the stuff besides just physical preparation, like including nutrition and stuff, does that have a role in whether you get injured or not?
I think proper nutrition and proper preparation for games is always a key factor. I mean, you can get injured in practice. Sometimes coaches take precautionary measures so they don't. So, say for instance, I know I was watching ESPN last night and they said Lynch didn't practice yesterday. He's the running back for the Seahawks, and I believe they're taking precautionary measures to make sure he doesn't injure himself because they really want him to play, that sort of thing. Is that pretty much the question? What else were you asking?
If nutrition is an important part.
Oh yeah, definitely. A balanced diet is always key, especially for players of that caliber that are playing at the professional level. A proper nutrition is. They need to intake the allotted amount of calories that they're supposed to. They need to eat the proper foods. Like, they can't be eating McDonald's every day. It's not going to help them succeed. You know, they need the proper protein and that sort of thing to help get them going.
Okay. During like the Super Bowl, are they gonna have to do more to stay warm, or is it like once they're warm, they don't really have to worry about it?
For that, I would say it depends more on the player. I mean, you might have offense that's on the field for 20 minutes and then defense is only on the field for 5. So if they're playing at a different ratio, then they might have to do just a few things to get warm. I don't really think weather is going to have a factor. I mean, they have jackets for them to stay warm. They have heaters on the field. They have numerous things to help keep them warm. But I really don't think so. That they're gonna have to do anything extra than what they've already been doing. I know, I can't remember, his name isn't coming to my mind, the Seahawks coach, they had an interview on ESPN and he said, we've been doing the same thing since day one. And basically that's saying they have a championship mentality and they've been playing like they're champions, and I mean, we see where they are right now.
Is there anything else that you wanted to add that's important to know?
I've been trying to follow it, but I've just been really busy with work, just like this whole week, because they're like, oh, it's Super Bowl week, it's gonna be crazy up here. But I think it's gonna be, I truly think it's gonna be a good game. I think it's gonna be very competitive, and just the whole league with Richard Sherman, him saying those things to Crabtree and about him, and that just blew. I feel like that blew way out of proportion, but I don't think that's really slowed anyone down. I think both teams have prepared really well, and I'm excited to watch them. I guess that's pretty much it.
So best players, best staff, best everything's gonna be in this weekend.
Oh yeah, you're gonna have your sports psychologists on staff. You're gonna have your physicians on the field. You're gonna have your athletic trainers watching up high, and the athletic trainers are actually on the field working with them. You're gonna have numerous coaches. Everyone's gonna be there. Fans and whatnot.
I guess that's it.
Okay.
Today is Super Bowl Sunday, and the Denver Broncos are playing the Seattle Seahawks in MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, where the temperature is currently 53 degrees with light precipitation. While in Lubbock, it's 29 degrees, and we got snow overnight. With the temperatures being and the weather being less severe at the Super Bowl, we'll see if the players are affected. Okay, first off, do you think that weather affects players both physically and mentally?
I think it affects players both physically and mentally, yes. Physically, when your muscles get cold, they're so pliable and plastic-like that when they get cold, they become very rigid, and so it makes it more difficult for players to move, more susceptible to tears and strained muscles and things like that. Also decreases like the sensitivity in the fingers and toes, so makes catching a ball a lot more difficult. And mentally, I think it plays a huge role. one of the things we preach every day is mental toughness. Mental toughness, you've got to be mentally strong. You can't be mentally weak or you're not going to be successful. And that's something that's been really evident the past couple of years anyway, is when it becomes cold, kids still want to, oh, it's so cold, I don't want to do this, I don't want to be out at practice. But then we've got several kids that have responded very well and have decided, okay, regardless of how cold it is, I'm going to work, I'm going to do what I'm supposed to do. So I think it affects people differently. But
what precautions do you take as a high school coach, but what other things that would they maybe have done in the Super Bowl to
I think
prepare them?
I think they're always going to stretch. You've got to stretch a little more when it's cold because, like I said, the muscles become more rigid, so it's more difficult to move. I think they probably would have done similar things in the Super Bowl. I know they have a lot more high-tech equipment and stuff that we do here at the high school level, obviously, but I think it would be very similar to always stretch. Make sure you stay hydrated regardless if you're cold or not. That's one of the things we also have to deal with is kids don't want to drink water or anything, but if they don't drink water, they're going to cramp up even more, and it's going to be more painful and more difficult for them to get back out. And so I think both on our level and in the Super Bowl level, professional level, it's going to be stretch and drink fluids just like you would in any situation.
One of the other girls that I talked to said that putting on layers and jackets and stuff helps keep you warm too. So that
Yeah, we've got several players that do. They did wear them. One of the things that comes back to for even when I was playing was the mental toughness aspect. Is I didn't want to be in the sleeves. I didn't want to seem like I was cold or show any sort of weakness. I don't think that's that much of a big deal as a coach now, seeing it. But we've got players that they'll wear the layers, and that's what's Under Armour's so good about that we've used for so long is as they've grown as a company, their products have become better and better at keeping you warm, at keeping your body temperature regulated, so you're not losing that body heat. It's just keeping it in for you. So layers, they work very well.
What position did you play in high school?
I was offensive line, played center.
Do the warm-ups and things vary between the different positions at all?
They do to an extent. We always stretch, do static stretching, which is just your basic touch your toes, jumping jacks, all that sort of stuff. When it comes to warming up in the game, we do more position-based warm-ups, like the offensive line will come out of the three-point stance and only go a few feet, whereas a wide receiver will start running his routes 20, 30 yards down the field. And so it varies by position depending on what you're doing.
Does how long they're going to be on the field kind of, because they said like the offense is on the field a different time than the defense. Does that have anything to do with it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to be on the field for a long time, you're always going to want to stretch more when you get back to the sidelines, just because you've been doing so much and you've been going for such a long period of time, which you could be on the field for up to 20 minutes almost. I think it really doesn't depend on the fact whether you're offense or defense, because if you're running an offense like we run a very fast-paced offense, so we're trying to get up and down the field as fast as possible. Whereas some teams we play, their offense is we're going to stay on the field as long as possible to keep us off the field. So
Okay.
it really varies.
Gotcha. Do you know a whole lot about nutrition and how that plays a role in?
A little bit. We try to get our kids to eat well. Are you talking about as far as like the muscle, like cold games and stuff like that?
Yeah, and because online I read something about they change their diet a little bit so they have more glucose in their blood so that it keeps their blood flowing faster, and I just thought that was kind of interesting.
I've never really heard that. That is very interesting. I never thought of it that way about your diet affecting how you'll perform certain weather, but that's something I'd like to research now that you brought it up. So
Do you think that the weather affected the two teams in the Super Bowl at all?
I don't think so. I think because a lot of people were expecting, oh, it's going to be snowing and all sorts of stuff when it was just cold. And being from Denver, it's always cold up there in the winter. In Seattle, the same thing. It's cold year round, I'm sure. Cold and wet and rainy. So I don't really think it would have played a major role for them. I think if you have had a team from like your Miami or somewhere like that, I think it would have been more of a problem. But I don't think with those teams, I don't think it did.
So for them, probably more just a mental state of mind and the
I think
nerves
so.
than
I
the
think so.
actual.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else that you wanted to say?
Not really. I mean, I think it's interesting that this is an interesting topic. I never really looked into it in that much detail, so it's a very interesting topic. I think it's something that people will find something that they'll enjoy reading. So,
Thank you.
you bet.